We live.
Welcome back. Welcome back to another live discussion of Real Talk. Guest. No, I usually say co-host. My guest. No. We're back. You know, when we have our episodes, man, they're normally good. They're normally interactive.
Mhm.
They're definitely younger. We're definitely we're definitely on the younger side of things in our conversations and how we deal with things. But how's your week been, Ollie? For everybody who doesn't know but should know.
It's had some ups and downs, but it's been good for the most part. I'm still here.
You're still here. You're still in the land of the living, man.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You're still gonna bless the Lord at
all times.
At all times, all circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But how about yourself? How was your week? Does your co-host usually ask that back?
No, he's not. Let me give you a quick little spiel of the co-host. No, he doesn't. He just jumped straight into what he wants to say.
Dang.
What he wants to do.
Mike.
So no, the co-host does not ask me how my week is going. He could care less. He just wants to jump straight into the information.
You got to get on him about that. Get on him.
You know, we'll see. Maybe next week he'll show up. I'm pretty sure he has some. He had very important business to attend to tonight.
Business.
Very very important business. But yeah, thank you for asking me.
Absolutely.
I don't get asked like that. Family's growing.
It's expanding.
It's expanding. I'm finally back and just trying to carve out new roles, new responsibilities, and
another baby girl. Dang.
Yeah. I'm happy. I got my boy first, and then my two girls. So
I'm trying to pop out nothing but boys, cause.
Good luck. Good luck.
Surrounded by girls.
And let me know how that goes. Being in the house full.
Yeah, that's true. That might be crazy. All right, you got experience with that, right?
Yeah, I'm good with me and Jaden. We equal two, and then the girls are just yeah. But you'll tend to find. It depends, but you tend to find, the daddy's girls. The girls kind of cling.
Oh yeah.
To dad, and then
absolutely
the guys kind of cling to, mom, and they can talk to mom and do it. But it's different. Everybody's is different with things. So you may pop out all the boys, and they be like, "I want to go to mom with things."
Yeah.
I know I need to be around dad. I know you can teach her things. I'd rather share things with
mom.
Yeah.
Which I'm cool with. We a team, so whatever they telling her is gonna come back to me anyhow.
Nah, you're gonna get on this masculinity thing. Did you see the
what?
Did you see
Good evening to you too, Mike, and we hope you're doing well as well.
What did he say?
He said, "Good evening, gentlemen. Hope all is well." Good luck, Jack. Girls are harder than boys. That's what they say. Yeah.
What's Anthony Mackie or whatever, the guy who plays now Captain America? He was talking about.
I saw something about that, like what masculinity's under attack or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was addressing that and dealing with that. So that's what I was saying. I was being funny when you were like, it's a tag team with mom and everything like that. I was like, no, you need to make sure.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Well, no, he didn't say that, but I'm just.
That's funny.
Cracking the joke in regards to that.
That's funny.
But all right. As my co-host will say, let's dive into this information. So tonight, we're going to talk about sharing your faith and just kind of walk through some things. What do we think about it? What are some things that could be effective? Just trying to give you things to think about. The one thing that I enjoy about doing the show, Real Talk, and make sure whoever's watching right now, make sure you like the video, share the video. But we enjoy the aspect that causes you to think.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to agree with it. We welcome and invite pushback because we understand how much dialogue is really needed in this country. Mm-hmm. We can disagree without there being hate. Mm-hmm. We can disagree and there still be love shown, and not just in our words that we love people. And so this is important. This is important to show believers dialogue, how to articulate your words, how to be able to address things. And so it's very, very, very much important that people understand that what our show is about, what our channel is about. It's about engaging people to have these conversations, and that you can go back to your local church when you do your Sunday schools. You can go back to other channels and they can do more deep dives into other things. But here with us, we want to get right to the surface level, ask better questions to cause you to dig deeper, and then allow you to now go back and do more research and do more things. So with that being said, what comes to your mind when you hear somebody say, or someone says, "I shared my faith today"? What pops into your mind when you hear somebody say that?
What pops into my mind is them giving the gospel, like sharing the gospel. But yeah. What about you?
I think about summertime and people evangelizing.
Okay.
I do. That's the first thing pops in my mind. That it's always like a weather thing. It's warmer out. People are out, either holding up signs or passing out tracts. And so when I hear somebody say, "I shared my faith today" with someone, I'm thinking there was something like some kind of outreach ministry going on, or some things like that.
And you know what? Also, to add to it, make it more interesting, I think about you know what? It's gonna be funny. There's this guy at my job who I've been thinking of, like, trying to evangelize to him, like, putting the breadcrumbs out there and try and, like, really have them, like, I don't know, come face to face to why, like, reality needs God, and how just but, like, just through, like, different conversations that we have. Like, he's a funny guy. It's Mike's brother. And so
I didn't even know Mike had a brother, but that's good.
Oh yeah, he got a couple of brothers, I think. But not to put your business out there, Mike, I'm sorry. But just trying to really, like, give him the gospel, but also, like, meet him where he's at, because he's, like, real stuck at things being logical. And he's a funny guy too, so he's, like, always thinking about, like, spinning something into a joke or something. So just trying to navigate that and trying to, like, really, like, show him through, like, what he believes is right and wrong and everything like that, and how that points to God. And so it's been interesting trying to work on that, as well as another guy. It's funny because they both share the same name, but he's been recently talking about, like, going to church, and we had a cool conversation about, like, like, what it feels like to have the Holy Spirit on you, or, like, to motivate you. So that was, like, real cool to have, like, the conversation with, like, he's been jaded, or at least he's experienced some crazy things within the church, or seen some, like, real backwards, like, hypocritical stuff. So that's been interesting to try and navigate, like, like, yeah, you might have saw that, and it's, like, terrible to see that and for that to be happening, but, like, don't let that allow for you to, like, keep you from having a relationship with God, kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this: if somebody came up to you, believer, and said, "Hey, Paulie, have you been sharing your faith with people?" What is going on in your mind when somebody says that to you?
I'd be like, yeah.
And how would you define that then?
Letting them know that I'm a Christian, letting them know that, like, I believe in the biblical Jesus, and then trying to spread the word through. Recently, it's been my artwork. I've been posting stuff on YouTube too, so trying to like weave the gospel. Like in every video, I have like a verse of the day, just to make it like blatant, like like this is like a Christian channel type of thing.
So sharing your faith,
Mhm.
you believe that you can do that with your artwork.
Absolutely.
And then define sharing your faith again.
Sharing the gospel.
Okay, so your picture shares the gospel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least the necessity of the gospel. Like, so maybe a piece won't, show the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, but it can show like it can highlight like a flaw that we have, or something that we're highlighting as a culture, but like needs to be condemned, and how the only way you can get out of like either condemnation or just like get out of the rut in which sin keeps us in is through believing in Jesus Christ. But in and of itself, like the artwork in and of itself doesn't have to share the gospel, but it allows for me to have the vehicle in order for me to have that conversation with somebody. Or like just recently, I had a show that shared three. It shared three pieces of the armor of God in two churches in Africa, and the general gist of the show was like how Christianity is often looked at as the white man's religion, and I wanted to show that there's like African roots within Christianity, in the sense that you got African characters in the Bible, as well as African churches that predate the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay.
And I got to share that. Like these pieces were hung up in a well-established gallery here in where I live, Buffalo, New York. And when it came time to have an artist talk, I shared exactly that. I depicted three pieces of armor of the God, three pieces of the armor of God, which was the helm of salvation, the sword of faith, right, and then and shoot, helm of salvation. Sorry, it was just two.
Okay.
Yeah, just two pieces. So helm of salvation and the sword of God, or the sword of faith. And within those pictures, they blatantly share the gospel. Like inscribed on the sword was like the death, burial, and resurrection, and then on the helmet was like the uh, sacrificial lamb surrounded by a crown of thorns, with like four little icons that depict the gospels in and of themselves. So like in art history, there's animals that depict the gospels. Like I think Saint Mark is like a lion or something like that. John is an eagle. Luke is like a bull, and then Matthew is an angel. And so, yeah, those are ways in which I've shared my faith. So yeah.
I think we got some comments in here. I want to kind of pivot to something.
See that.
That, because the title is sharing your faith.
Mm-hmm.
When I always heard that recently, I wanted to make sure we made this clarification. When somebody says, I'm sharing my faith, or sharing your faith, it isn't as if it's something that you came up with yourself, okay? Meaning it isn't independent of God. Like you didn't, when it says your faith, it's not like it's yours in a sense, right? But you kind of hear this sometimes where people, it's like, I'm sharing, I shared my faith, and you start hearing the my, like, okay, are you like, is this And it could allow people to think that the your or my is something that you came up with yourself. And I'm referencing this because I don't know if you ever read, there's a couple of verses where Paul addresses my gospel. So Romans chapter 2:16, it says, in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ, according to my gospel. Romans 16:25, now to him who is able to strengthen you according to my gospel and the preaching of Jesus Christ, according to the revelation of the mystery which has been kept secret for long ages past. And then 2 Timothy 2:8, remember Jesus Christ, risen from the dead, the offspring of David, according to my gospel. And so sometimes what people would try to do, because they didn't like to give credence or any type of authority to Paul, a lot of things he had to keep writing and addressing about things. But people walked away with thinking like, well, this is just what Paul is saying. Like this is Paul's addressing his my, as in.
Some people critique us of worshiping Paul more than we do Jesus.
Well, anyways, I just wanted to put the statement out there more, just to clarify.
So this was a trick question.
No, it's not a trick question.
To say that we should be more so sharing the gospel rather than my gospel, or is that?
No, the topic is sharing your faith, and I'm just saying, just as a clarification before we, as we're jumping into this, the your is just meant, or if somebody was to say I'm sharing my faith,
like your faith journey.
Well, no, the your or the my, they say that these things are called possessive determiners. Basically, it just means that you're just having ownership. You're just saying that this is something that you possess. So when you say my or your, so you own a home, right? Mm-hmm. I own a home, and I'm married. Most of the time, there's going to be two names on the deed, right? Husband, wife. If the wife says, hey, you can come over to my house, and she's speaking to somebody, she's laying claim to ownership. She has it. But the my doesn't mean that she's the only person who possesses these things.
Right.
It's just that it's her possession. She has ownership of it. Mm-hmm. So when we use the word my, or I'm sharing your faith, this isn't subjective. This isn't a way to say like your faith is different than this person who's sharing their faith, but we're all Christians.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, because which we'll get into, this is objectively to say that when Paul's addressing my gospel, that isn't a means for you to try to say, well, yeah, it's just the same way when I'm saying my faith.
Right. Or my truth, rather.
Exactly. So, like don't fall into that trick in the way that people are thinking.
For sure.
And I'm going to get into how I know that Paul isn't addressing some subjective way of saying sharing my faith like it's independent of God, or it's just however you want to do it. I'm saying that there's something that he's addressing and that he's after when he's saying my gospel. But we're gonna look at some other verses. But I want you to read those.
Yeah, comments. I do. I've been wanting to. I can't see it though.
Before we get into.
So, Josh says, "What are some themes you like to communicate in your artwork, or rather, try to communicate in your artwork? Can sharing your faith be in a fashion of living it out to where people ask questions on how you think and operate, which leads to pointing to the gospel?" I love all those questions, and I think yes, you could definitely if you live out your life a certain way. Like just the other day, my coworkers were talking about how like I'm a straight edge or whatever. Like I don't do drugs or nothing, and that's a perfect opportunity to be like, well, why don't you do drugs, Stephen? And I just share with them that I'm a Christian and I don't want to do none of that, and all this other stuff, or like why you may not swear or go out partying or whatever else, or why you enjoy being with your wife, as some people in the world may not really love hanging out with their wife or whatever else. And then what was that? The questions? What are some? So I like to communicate joy and happiness I really like communicating that through my artwork, and I think that's another vehicle in which we can, um, or we at least I can try and share like my gospel or the gospel rather. Um,
You can say your or my gospel.
I just corrected myself.
You didn't need to, is what I'm trying to get to.
Right.
I just want you to think and understand how to navigate through somebody who hears
Absolutely.
that and how to make sure. But it's nothing wrong with referencing it that way. It's ownership. You are a believer.
Partaker.
You are a partaker of this. You've accepted it, so you have ownership to say, my God, my Christ, this is my gospel. And especially in I think it was Galatians, I want to say, where they had different gospels floating around, and so to be able to reference those things and to say, well, this is kind of like my gospel doesn't do that. It's still not, showing anything that it's you who came up with it. Right. So you don't have to change it. But I wanted to get into how we know Paul isn't addressing something separate. In Romans chapter 1 and then in 1 Corinthians 15. But in Romans chapter 1, I'm going to read verses 1 through 6. It says, Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God, which he had promised afore by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord, which was made of the seed of David, according to the flesh, and declared to be the Son of God with power, according to the Spirit of holiness, by the resurrection from the dead. Verse 5, by whom we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to the faith among all nations for his name, among whom are ye also the called of Jesus Christ. So important things that was in there. First of all, he references how he was separated. He was an apostle separated unto the gospel of God. So he's already identifying what he's sent to, and he's referencing the gospel of God. Then verse 2, he talks about how it was foretold by the holy prophets. So now if you go through the old covenant on up, you'll see he's referencing what God has already orchestrated, how God allowed these prophets to pen and share what he was going to do. But once again, it's not his. It's not his in the sense of he came up with it on his own. He's referencing foretold by the holy prophets. I'm separated and called unto the gospel of God. So this isn't this idea that he's doing things of his own. He's referencing the Christ's sonship. He's referencing to his authority. So it's very good and important to kind of see, like, even when Paul's talking about my gospel, he's not talking about like it's his, like he's some author of it. He's just laying claim to, he possesses these things. He's laying claim to ownership because he is a believer. Also in 1 Corinthians 15, which I love, I'm going to jump down to, I think, verse 3. He says, for I pass on to you as of first importance what I also received, meaning he got this information from somewhere, that Christ died for our sins according to that which the scriptures foretold, and that he was buried and that he was bodily raised on the third day according to that which the scriptures foretold, and that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. But he said, for I pass on to you as of first importance what I also received. So once again, the great thing about scriptures is it's almost like a puzzle. You just keep putting the pieces together, and then you can understand things in a better place, in a better space. And so when we're looking at Paul addressing my gospel, or you see things that like the doctrines of the apostles, it shouldn't be for you to look at to say that they're the author of things or it's independent. It should be for us to recognize these people are laying hold and claim to that. I only brought that up for clarity's sake, so that also we as believers understand, like, there's no subjective like way to say, I'm sharing my faith and you can share your faith. Like, there's some different types of faith. There may be different methods in which we go about doing things, but it's the same faith. You just using the word your and my should be seen as I'm a believer. I
Right.
take ownership. Not, well, that's my faith. And like, there's some different,
Mhm.
like, subjective way amongst believers. Now, when I hear the word faith, a lot of things can pop into my mind. So when I'm addressing sharing your faith, we kind of need to get to specifically what is it that we're trying to tackle in this discussion. Okay, right? Because you can look at the definition that most people know when it comes to faith. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, referencing in Hebrews 11. We can talk about Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace are you saved through faith, not that of yourselves. It's the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. You can reference 2 Corinthians 5:7 and 2 Corinthians 4:18, where it talks about walking by faith and not by sight. And then you can look at in James chapter 2, where it talks about, faith without works is dead. So what are we really addressing when we're talking about sharing your faith? Is faith in different contexts can mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, the focal point that I really kind of want to address and deal with is faith addressing salvation, preaching the gospel message, as you talked about, and then godly living that allows for God to be glorified,
Right.
and then make people, as Cook was pointing out, makes people then want to question certain things, ask things, and then from there we preach, the gospel message. Does it make sense as far as what we're
Absolutely.
addressing when we're talking about sharing your faith